It's now 6 o'clock. I think we'll get underway and like to welcome all the participation in this Derbyshire Planning Committee. Just before we move into the full report, just like to point out, if you look at the screens, we're not expecting a fire drill, but if you do hear the fire bell, it will be for real. Please leave through the double doors, go down into the foyer, out and onto the top car park. Right, so now we'll start the, I must point out also that it's being recorded, so live streamed on YouTube, so if any member of the public doesn't want to be recorded, please let the committee clerk know, so we can arrange that and edit that out of YouTube. Okay, right, so we'll move on now. Item number 1 is apologies. Jackie.
Yes, Chair. Apologies for tonight from Councillors Archer, Bright, Buckler, Purdy and Sutton, and attending as substitutes are Councillors Martin Burfoot, Donnelly, Froggatt and Hobson.
Thank you very much. Not yet. So now we move on to item 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. I move. Second.
Second, Chair.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Very much. Item 3, interests. Any councillor declaring interest in the item we're discussing tonight? No? Right. In which case then we'll move fully on now into the main body of the report, and we'll start with application 4.1, which is application number 19/00074. This is extension and conversion of garage to holiday let at Park House, Michael Green. We've got 2 speakers on this, but before I take speakers, this item. There's no dates on this item, Chair. Thank you very much. So the first speaker for this application is Mr. John Fletcher. He's a local resident neighbour and he's speaking against the application. You have 3 minutes and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds left.
My dealings with planning officers, I found them both courteous and helpful, but I was very disappointed that in spite of another neighbour and myself submitting a more appropriate copy of the block plan, which I wasn't able to give to the committee, they persisted in using something that really doesn't represent Park Close. Park Close is a privately owned in 5 sections by the 5 properties that it serves, each of which is mutually covenanted not to use or allowed to use any part of it for parking vehicles of any description and to keep it free and unrestricted at all times. This proposal, the application, reduces the number of parking spaces that are legitimately available to Park House. The garage in question, located near the centre of this community, is currently accessed from the close by partially crossing a neighbour's driveway. It's not a thing of great beauty, but to suggest that increasing its height by 50% by the addition of a fixed roof would somehow make it more attractive is fanciful at best, and the skylight windows to the south would certainly draw attention to it when internally lit at night. Park House currently enjoys 3 parking spaces, 2 on the hard standing outside the garage, and yes, 1 inside the garage. Garages are buildings where motor vehicles are housed. I've taken the liberty of modifying the plan to show that. I'm sure the members on the site visit will have seen that. Park House currently needs 3 parking spaces. I accept that the residential parking standard only requires 2 spaces for a 3-bedroom dwelling, but Park House is a large house, soon to be larger, and there will be plenty of scope to create a 4th bedroom in future. They need 3 parking spaces to accommodate adult relatives and or visitors, and we have already been subjected to several weeks earlier this year and currently to just such a need when an adult son saw fit to park in the closed turning area. Perhaps they were initially unaware of the covenant deeds. The house recently purchased, that excuse is no longer relevant. I'm very pleased with most of the conditions that have been attached to the recommendation for acceptance. I just hope that they are more enforceable than the restrictions written into the property deeds. Finally, the advice offered by the Highways Department, I hope the committee were able to see for themselves this
Very
afternoon.
much, Mr. Fletcher, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you. The next speaker we have on this is the applicant, Sharon Sale. You've got 5 minutes. I'll let you know when this is.
Hello.
Would you like to turn your microphone on?
Hello. I understand and respect my neighbour's objections and concerns, which I shall try and now and in the future address with sympathy and in a polite, neighbourly way, as to we want to keep the harmony of the close. The outdoor area seems to be a concern with the neighbours. We've already erected a privacy fence at our cost and the neighbours' agreement for their and our benefit. Before this, both us and our neighbours could look directly onto each other's properties, which has been the case for many years. I'm an experienced host for holiday lets, gaining many 5-star reviews and Superhost rewards in the past. Only 2 guests and no pets will be permitted at the accommodation. Only 1 car will be allowed at the accommodation and also on the close. And the house rules regarding to music, noise and conduct. This would affect us as much as it would affect our neighbours. We definitely would not want nor tolerate noise late into the night or the early morning or any unruly behaviour, as we would be on site and any breach of the house rules would be addressed immediately by myself and husband. In my 12 years experience in holiday rental, it is very unusual for people to disrespect property or rules, but again, we will be there to please them. The property would not attract parties or as only 2 people at any one time would be allowed to occupy the property. Highways have no objection to an additional car coming and leaving. Many guests would arrive by public transport as it's easy access by trains and buses. We support local business and people and believe the addition of a small holiday suite would have benefits for the local area financially. At present, the garage is nondescript, if not ugly. Having the benefit of the upgrades outlined in the architect's designs, I feel we will make a more pleasing building to look at. We shall of course submit all the detailed planning requirements and do a quick, clean build, informing our neighbours along the way of any large deliveries. All materials will be kept on our property and will follow all the rules from planning, and that includes what you've specified in the parking, I believe. And I don't believe that it's going to be 50% higher than what it already is now. And that's it. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Is anything else you'd like to come back on?
Thank you, Chair. There's a number of points that I need to come back on, please. The first speaker made reference to the existing lot plan and its provision on site for just 3 parking spaces. Just for clarity, members need to be directed or have regard to the proposed plans that accompany this application. Now, the proposed plot plan indicates that existing walls are to be removed to facilitate access to both serve Park House and also this use of holiday accommodation. You'll note from that plan that walls are to be demolished and existing retaining walls lowered to facilitate improved parking to serve both units of accommodation. So you can see on there you've got a revised parking plan. Now, there are conditions recommended in the officer's report, and one of those conditions requires that parking space to be formed prior to first use of the holiday let accommodation. So it's a requirement for that condition to be complied with and that parking space to be provided in accordance with the approved details to ensure there is appropriate parking provision, the existing house on the site and also the holiday let before that new use is active on the site. Mention was made to covenant and rights of access. Just to be clear that that is a civil matter between the parties involved. It's not a planning matter that we can consider here tonight. the local highway authority is satisfied that the access onto the road is acceptable from a highway safety viewpoint, and happy that there's appropriate parking provisions for this development. So they've raised no objections on that basis. It's acknowledged that the buildings has a neutral impact on its surroundings. It is what it is, a flat roof garage. It's constructed in stone. The proposed use would utilise that existing building. It would introduce a pitched roof on the building, which is a more traditional built form. So there are some enhancements to its appearance. Officers are satisfied that the scheme as presented is acceptable in terms of both impact on the character and appearance of the locality, but also in terms of its constituting sustainable form of development. Although outside of the settlement framework, it's very close to a main market town, and it's within walk or easy access of key services and facilities, and also represents the effective reasonable reuse of existing building outside the site. So we're recommending approval on that basis. Happy to take questions.
Right, members, questions? Councillor Baldwin.
Yeah, I'm a little unclear about the parking space. On here you've got the 3 cars. The garage seemed to be very much closer to that wall that drops off down onto the main property there. It certainly didn't look as if you could get a car past it at the moment. Now, I know they're saying they're going to build and extend the parking space so that you can get the car on there. Does that mean that the original wall that faces the main property will be taken down in any way? Because that is a very old wall by the looks of it, and I'm a little concerned about that.
The extent of wall to be removed, you can see on that photograph on the projector, it's the extent, the low level section of the wall. That's the section that will be removed. It's clearly shown on the proposed block plan.
No, I'm not talking about that wall. I'm talking about the wall, the long wall that goes along the garden of the main property.
Yes,
drops down.
That's to be removed or lowered to the point where it's level with the existing hard surface. So the hard surface will extend above that wall.
But when we were there, I'm sorry to be pedantic about it, but when we were there, it didn't look as if there was enough room between the corner of the garage and the existing drop wall for you to get a car around. So are they building out? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, that's correct. I think it's a bit difficult on site because the applicant has erected a fence which does compromise the amount of space that's currently available to park a vehicle in that area. The applicant did indicate on site that was just a temporary measure, so that fence will be taken down and the parking area extended. So that is misleading in that respect.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to carry on, but I'm not clear, so I want to be clear. So that original wall that drops down and is facing the main property at the moment, is that going to still be there with an extension over the top of it that will extend out over it in some way, or will they take that wall away and build a new wall?
That wall, the description is given on the plan, is existing wall to be reinstated in new position to allow for larger parking area. So if you just think about where the level of that surface is at the moment, that will represent the maximum height of that wall, and that wall will retain that new area of fire standing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Slack.
Yeah. Will that be one of the conditions? Voted for one of the conditions that will do that. Lower the wall of wire.
It's part of the proposal, so there'll be a requirement of the applicant to do that, and they can't implement the permission or bring the holiday letter to use until they first thought about the parking area as set out.
We were trying to approve it, we don't want to suddenly approve it and then find out it's still a merit piece of money, didn't it?
Yeah, if they were to convert the building and utilise it as a holiday let based on the current layout, then that wouldn't comply with the details that we presented as part of this application, so we'd be in breach of that condition.
Councillor Mrs. Burnham.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask about the visibility display onto the A615? Am I correct in thinking that in 2005 there was some pre-planning advice to another property on Park Close that meant that the visibility display onto the A615 was not acceptable. So have we had any details from the county council as to why it is now acceptable?
We have. I mean, there's been a change in guidance, basically. So we now, the higher authority, use the manual for streets too. Now that document is more flexible in terms of looking at likely intensification of use. I'm not sure what the nature of the inquiry was back in whatever date it was that you just mentioned. But at this moment in time, the higher authority is satisfied that a holiday let use isn't as intensive a use as a dwelling house use on the site. And also they're happy with vehicle speeds and flows that the access onto the main road is acceptable from highway safety viewpoint.
So if I could just come back on that, Chair, it just say in the report that the local highway authority has advised that these are guidelines and the display is close to the minimum. You know, it sort of worries me a bit that, well, how far away from the minimum is acceptable? If the highways have got the minimum, should we not be taking that advice and saying that is the minimum?
I think the point here, Councillor Burton, as we've discussed before about the NPPF, is there's a presumption that the Highway Authority supports development proposals unless the highway impacts are severe. Even though it might be close to the minimum visibility display that they would require to choose that, they're not going to conclude that it's a severe impact, and therefore they support it.
Councillor Mr.
But my question was very similar to Sue's, so I'll deal with it when I speak in the debate, but there's no question to ask.
Any more questions, members there? Councillor Fuller.
Can I just refer you to 7.4 in the report, please? You finish up there the final sentence, and we're talking about the impact on the neighbours' amenity. The final sentence says, in terms of outlook and light, the proposal will increase the height and mass of the building, and an assessment is required as to the extent this will harm the amenity of the neighbours. Does the rest of your report answer that? Is that what you're saying, or has that assessment still got to be made? Because if it's still got to be made, we really need to know about it, don't we?
No, the assessment's made in the report, so it's an introduction to that section.
Thank you.
In which case, I'll move into debate. No. Councillor.
Yeah, according to the front of this, it's all going to be open glazed, so there'll be the overlooking on the premises literally right opposite. You do say in the report that that will be covered by a car actually parking at the front, but I don't feel that that is acceptable in that aspect of saying, well, if you park a car there, you're not going to have the views in and out. How does that work?
What officers are saying in the report is that a car parked in front of the accommodation will to some degree mitigate any views you'd have over that neighbouring property. But we're satisfied that the distance between the units of holiday accommodation and also the house opposite is such that there wouldn't be any significant loss of privacy in this case.
Members, we've moved into debate, so what I'm looking for now is the proposal and the seconder. Councillor Slack?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will move it, Chair, but before I move it, I'd like to just highlight a few points. I'm pleased now that it's only a two-person dwelling, really. That's a real condition, I suppose, now. And the noise will be limited very, very minute anyway, to people. And also the car headlights will only be one car, really, unless of a car apiece. So that's minimum. So it's just one item which is troubling me, the drainage and the sewerage. Is that adequate?
The development will need to comply with building regulations, and there'll be a requirement for appropriate drainage, foul drainage and surface water drains to serve the development.
Right, so I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slack. Is that the family seconded? Councillor Rowley?
Chair, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm quite happy to second that. I think it would be a nice condition.
Thank you very much. That's been moved in a second. I have got Councillor Hobson down, so.
I'd just like to support the motion and to encourage the lady with her new business.
Councillor Martin Berthel.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of concerns about this application, actually. I realise that being a private road isn't a reason, or the covenants involved can't be a reason for refusal of a planning application. But I think that issue, the fact that it's a private road, it's narrow, it's twisting, the obviously existing residents with their rights to park as well. But on-site parking, I think turning vehicles is going to be an issue, and particularly with this particular proposal. When you look at the three cars that are shown parked, one in front and two alongside the proposed accommodation. I think if you look at in fact on site this afternoon we saw how the wall, the park retaining wall onto Park Close is to be demolished and cut back to the boundary with Park House. I think we saw that. We also saw, in fact, that the change of level that will be required will make it very difficult to access and egress from, reverse from, onto Park Close. Because Park Close is quite steeply sloping. There's a need to regrade it back to, or forward, in fact, to the building, and so it's going to be a sort of a skewed, sort of double camber, if you like, effect on vehicles reversing out into Park Close. I think it'd be extremely tortuous. And I wonder if that is actually going to be used constantly, or there could be, as some residents have suggested, a sort of a problem with parking spilling out onto Park Close itself. That's one issue. I'm concerned, like others who've spoken, about the impact on neighbours' amenity, invasion of privacy and so on. And obviously the present harmonious relations between neighbours could be affected by that. In terms of highway safety, as my wife Sue asked earlier, I'm concerned about that because those who live in Matlock and access that road regularly, we're concerned for a start that it is a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in that area, and yet vehicles don't comply with that. I mean, sorry, it's 40 miles an hour wrong, if they throw it to be 30 miles an hour, and residents or passers-by, particularly strangers, do not seem to appreciate that speed limit, and they drive even faster than 40 miles an hour coming down towards the Matlock Green filling station, and being quite a restricted access with obviously street furniture restricting it even further. I think given that strangers are going to be using this accommodation, not people who are familiar with the conditions, I think there could be further problems in terms of safety for both residents themselves and for passers-by if this is adopted. So I've got a number of concerns about this development, so I don't think I can support it in its present form.
Very much. Anybody else wishing to speak? No? It's been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favour, please show.
Seven.
Those against?
Fine.
No abstentions. So that is carried for approval. Thank you very much, members. We'll move swiftly on. This is 4.2. This is application number 19/000115. This is a full application for formation of car parking area, removal of section of boundary wall and erection of retaining wall at County House, 13 Main Street, Middleton, by Works of Derbyshire. You will notice there is some late representation on this, so I'll just give you a couple of minutes to read the late representation before we move on with this one. Thank you very much. The second speaker I've got down is Miss Dina Foster. To speak on behalf of the board, to speak against the application. We've got 3 minutes and indicated when we've got 30 seconds.
Ellen Woods like to apologise that she is unable to attend the meeting in person. She is grateful for the opportunity for her statement to be heard in this way. She says, I am fully in agreement with the views of the Conservation Officer that the proposed development will be damaging not only to the listed property Phantom House, but also to the conservation of the historical attributes of the alley and hillside. Furthermore, it would provide no balancing benefit to the public in terms of parking on Main Street, as it would have the effect of displacing two vehicles into the place of the one vehicle that the applicant would then get parking in closer space. Parking in the area on Main Street is already acknowledged as a problem in the village, and no scheme that would exacerbate the problem should be approved. The proposed development is sited in exactly the place where residents of the alley park vehicles, and would also render the space against the opposite wall unusable. These parking arrangements have been in place for in excess of 20 years. Many residences on the alley and hillside have no off-road parking, and given the narrow single-track nature of these roads, it is not possible to park directly outside. As the applicant is a resident of Main Street and not the alley or hillside, I do not believe that he is fully aware of the volume of both vehicular and pedestrian traffic that uses both of these roads on a daily basis. Those vehicles displaced from existing parking of this proposal would still need to access the road and the residences, and this, coupled with the extra vehicular movements and further access, would stretch capacity beyond the capability of the infrastructure. I am also fully in agreement with the assessments of highways relating to risks to safety for all legitimate users of these roads or access to the properties situated here. I do not think that there is a way that this application can be made
30 seconds left.
to satisfy the stipulations of both conservation and highways, as the requirements of these two bodies are so entirely at odds. I hope that there is therefore no hesitation in coming to the only reasonable decision in this case and refusing this application, as it is entirely untenable.
Thank you very much. The last speaker I've got on this is Mr. Andrew Street, that's the applicant. You've got 5 minutes and I'll indicate when you've got 30 seconds left.
First of all, I'd just like to mention that some of the immediate arguments on the part of neighbours, which we referred to in the earlier discussion, have already been dealt with by the report and weren't critical in this. Two vehicles have been referred to by earlier speakers. In fact, I've provided photographic evidence to the council that they were rendered not on Main Street, not on where we referred to the original property. Because highway issues around safety could be addressed in satisfaction of the highway authority, I'll refer to that in a minute. The case for refusal board has really one issue. It's an opinion, and I emphasise it is an opinion, about the effects on the conservation area and risk of building setting and reducing the height of this rear boundary wall by 0.5 per metre. It would still be a metre minimum height, higher than that in other places, to create visibility displays. Also creating a gap of around 3 metres for a traditional timber games, which I'm quite happy is to begin to look traditional in another place. Please note that contrary to section 2.1 of the report, the parking area would not extend along the width of the western boundary, just a fraction of that. And the plans are to show that. Those plans reduce the parking area from 2 vehicles to 1. They reduce the gate width to 0.3 metres, which means a sensible and safe width. And it did introduce parking displays, not to the maximum possible, I admit, but I'm quite willing to do that, and I've already emphasised that to council officers. Section 5.3 of the report states that I've disregarded highways advice. Now, I think this is genuinely misleading. As I say, I'm very willing to increase the length of space to comply with the county council highways conditions,
have said that already to council officers. The problem I've had is that I'm facing differing requirements from two different councils with different responsibilities in planning. One's looking at highways and safety, one's looking at the conservation of this building. But I do believe that a sensible compromise is possible. The district council says in 7.3 that there is no compromise available and there is no point in negotiating. I think that is unreasonable, and I think the solution to this is I would point out that the main feature of the wall, the arch pedestrian gate, will remain. The report doesn't mention this at all. I've spoken directly to the county council highways officer. He's emphasised that the gate will remain. I think conservation has to be about managing change sensitively as living requirements change in the modern era, rather than blocking all change. And so many other changes have occurred along the alley and along the rest of that road to the wall which extends along this lane, with large sections being lowered, breaches made, off-street parking, often used by objectives. To summarise, I think we can introduce some sensitive changes to actually comply with the needs of the conservation area, the list of the building, and also the highway section. I'd also point that the planning permission was, and this building consent was granted back in '94. Nothing has really changed since then, I think, to alter the sense of that decision. Planning policies, yes, have come and gone, but I don't think they're so different to change the case for maintaining that approval. The council's train of logic in '94, when I negotiated with them and restored their house, was as follows. The house was in a danger of collapse, including onto my neighbour Mr. Albert's property. Fountain House had been on the market for a long time because the council wanted it retained as a single family dwelling. Various developers approached the council with a view to splitting it up, but had been rebuffed. I worked closely with council planners and rebuilt the house, much as it had been as one unit, but I'd indicated from the beginning that a large single family house with 5 bedrooms and some off-street parking. It just had that with the previous application. The dangers to people and vehicles parking on Main Street in front of the house were evident even then. The council agreed with me, hence the application for parking was approved. I did actually commence some work on it, but didn't complete it all because additional structural problems emerged with the property, which were very costly to rectify. If I had finished it, we wouldn't be here today, but parking would be in place. I would also point out that the '94 permission was part of a bigger composite approval to rebuild the north wing of the house and do various other bits of work, and that was all done. And so a material start on that composite approval had been made. I wrote to the council in 2016 to seek confirmation of this, and I received a letter from the council agreeing that the '94 permission still applied. There has been an argument by the council that conditions were time limited, but I don't think they should have been wrapped up with the original permission. That should have been time limited, the conditions should not. I would also dispute the PPF review put forward in the report. I think there is a net benefit from taking cars from that front facade, which is the main part of the house. But again, I would emphasise the safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Street.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Officers, is there anything you'd like to come back?
Yes, Chair, just a couple of points to come back on this item. Members visited the site this afternoon and they would have appreciated for themselves the contribution the wall makes at the rear of this property to both the character and appearance of this part of the conservation area, but also the setting of Fountain House, which is a great listed building. There is an issue here in that to achieve the visibility displays that the local highway authority require, that will require more of an intervention, more of a change to the character of that wall. The proposal as amended seeks a break in the wall, but then also to lower 3-metre sections of the wall to metre in height either side of the area. Now, officers' view and the view of its conservation officers is that results in harm, albeit less than substantial harm in NPPF terms to those heritage assets that I previously mentioned. Now we have to consider any harm and weigh those against any public benefit. The access that would be created on the back of this development would be substandard in highway safety terms, and it would result in parking for just one vehicle. Those benefits aren't considered to outweigh the harm in this particular case, and that's why we're recommending refusal. Just to address the previous speaker's comments relating to the previous permission, just to emphasise that since 1994 things have changed quite significantly. Government guidance was introduced in September of 1994 through Planning Policy Statement 15, which put greater emphasis on conserving heritage assets, and that's been carried forward and evolved through subsequent national guidance, and is currently contained within the National Planning Policy Framework. So permission was granted for the original scheme in April 1994, and a raft of government guidance was introduced in September of that year. So the policy position and the emphasis on protecting heritage assets, there was a complete change at that time. So I don't think it's correct to say that nothing's really changed in policy terms. I think significant changes have happened since previous grants of planning permission. Happy to take questions at this stage.
Thank you very much, Chris. Councillor Burford, Mr. Burford.
Well, I've got a question. I was supposed to speak, but do you want to defer that until the debate? Okay.
Councillor Hughes.
We've had reference twice now to a letter dated in 2016. Could you describe what that letter says?
I have seen the letter, and it's along the lines of, it's literally a sentence that says, provided you've complied with the terms of that permission, that yes, it's a valid permission.
We have a copy here.
The issue is, just to elaborate on that, is that a start would be accepted material start was made on development of the site at that time, but none of the pre-commencement conditions had been discharged, so the applicant hadn't made an lawful start on that permission. So over time, in terms of the extension to the building, that gained immunity under the 4-year rule, and the rest of the development was not carried out. So to carry that development out later, the original permission would have expired. That would have been quite a fresh grant of planning permission. Hence why we've got this current application before us this evening.
Councillor Paul.
Yes, it was just a similar question actually. I just wanted to be absolutely certain that in legal terms that original permission is now not valid and out of time. Is that right?
Well, it can't be lawfully implemented because there was a number of pre-commencement conditions that hadn't been dealt with. So that requirement would still they need to comply with those conditions now. And obviously, the permission time expired many years ago.
Councillor Slam.
Thank you, Chair. The property is, of course, listed as one of the oldest houses we'll be looking at. And but the wall is contiguous. It isn't just for that one property. It goes right around the corner and down the lane. So therefore, the wall must have been built many years after the disrepair. So have you any history of when the wall was first built?
I can't confirm when the wall was built. All I know is that the conservation area, Milton Marlborough Conservation Area, was designated in 1980. The wall was considered a very important feature of hillside in this part of the village. So it's got recognition in that conservation area appraisal and is recognised as part of that designation.
Yes, so therefore it's not a listed one, it's in the conservation area. That's it, what you're saying.
Well, the Fountain House was listed in 1973, and the wall was in existence at that time. It was a pre-1948 structure. It can be satisfied as pre-1948. It would be deemed Kirklees listed.
Way after the
so the wall was an important feature of the conservation area, but it's also a Kirklees listed structure in its own right as well.
Okay. Thank you, members. If there's no more questions, I'll move into debate. Councillor Burford.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to move officer recommendation, actually. I'll get your sympathy for people living in the Derbyshire towns and villages. Traditional ones that are subject to conservation area status, representing Matlock Bank, the Matlock Bank side of Matlock. It's a very similar sort of topography to places like Middleton. And I think over the years, as we've seen, heritage assets have been downgraded, eroded, if you like, by people putting accesses off the road into their curtilages. And it's something that obviously I have sympathy with, because obviously parking is a prime requirement these days for people who buy an old property in an old town or village. But that doesn't degrade the legislation and the latest local plan, the Derbyshire local plan, of course, and the NPPF guidelines in terms of protecting heritage assets. So I think the impact on the street scene of reducing the height of this wall to 1 metre, raising it above back to its original height, or keeping it in original height either side of the gate, I think will degrade the visual amenity of that particular area and the street scene generally. And it's not a matter of opinion. Heritage assets have been eroded over the years, and the legislation is put in place for that particular purpose, to protect these assets. So I think for that reason alone, I think I'd go along with Office's recommendation and fully support the report in its entirety. And I think therefore this application should be refused.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm happy to second that. It's interesting to note that the permission that was granted in 94 says but I think, having seen it on site and weighed up the options and read the report, I'm right on the side of the opposition report. I think we've done a cracking report of this, because I think this is, I'm not quite sure what it's going to add to the party really, because in terms of the heritage, so I'm happy to say.
Thank you very much. Any other members wanted to speak on this? Councillor Donald?
Yeah, I'm just happy to support the recommendation. I think the damage done by taking that wall out would be more detrimental to the conservation issue.
Councillor Sack.
Thank you, Chair. This application seems it's 2 different sides to it. It's a Middleton have been very, very badly hit by traffic. Obviously, it's like all villages, it's snarled up in traffic and there's nowhere to go. That's on one side. The other side is the importance of it. I realise the importance of heritage as well. So it's a balancing really between off-street parking and heritage. And as Chris has already described, heritage seems to be coming out on top. So that's all I've got to say.
Councillor Mrs. Berthel.
I haven't got much to say except that I think this is an excellent report, and I do support the officers. I think it's vital that we protect our heritage, and I would also be worried about some kind of precedent being set if we were to approve this, even though I do have some sympathy for the applicant and not really having a suitable place to come.
Thank you. Right, I've nobody else down to speak, so it's been moved and seconded for refusal. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous. So that has been refused. Right, moving swiftly on to 4.3, which is the listed building consent. Removal section of boundary wall at Fountain House, 13 Main Street, Middleton by West, Derbyshire. Is there any updates on this? Thank you very much. In which case, I've got 3 speakers on this. They are the same as before. So the first speaker for this is Mr. Albin, local resident, to speak against the application. You have 3 minutes, and I'll indicate when you've got 30 seconds left.
I'll make this quick. It's exactly the same words as I said first time round.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Short and sweet. Mr. Dean Foster, on behalf of the Daughter again, you also have 3 minutes. I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds.
Likewise, it's exactly as I just said.
Thank you very much. So the last speaker on my list is Mr. Andrew Street, that's the applicant, to speak in favour of the application. You have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like the previous discussion, clearly I'm going to have to make a speech of a lifetime, but what I would say is it is a question of balance. I think one member of the committee mentioned that. The way that the wall is going to be restored is in a full structural state. I'm it's hollowed out basically. There's an element of subsidence on the part of it, and something's got to be done about it. The actual parking space would actually reinforce the wall where there's some evidence of subsidence. It would retain the features of the traditional features of the wall, including the coping stones. Yes, it's slightly lower, but I think you have to balance that, as I said earlier on, against problems on Main Street. And please note in the report the parish council emphasised that we need to look at the wider elements of parking, speeding, danger to pedestrians, danger to people getting in and out of cars trying to access houses. There has to be some kind of balancing factor against what I would regard as a relatively minor change in the conservation area. I don't see why it would set a precedent. The way this has been done, clearly it's been done through due process. We've had all the issues. I think that the idea that I would suddenly open the floodgates and people start hacking down sections of the wall, I think is unlikely. If you look at what along the alley where a carport and a balcony has been put in the conservation area, sections of wall have been hacked down to create gravelled parking areas. We've got a concrete garage that isn't a particularly nice looking building right next to mine. That's been built with a concrete driveway since the conservation area was designated. Again, lots of things have happened. We've still got to face the fact that this is a 5-bedroom house, that it's got to have a viable future. I'm in my 60s now, I did the work in my 30s. The garden's very steep, it's hard to maintain. This proposal would begin to level it off with a bit of additional terracing, make it a lot safer. It would also obviously make entrance and parking safer by using that for at least one vehicle. So those are the key issues. It is a balancing matter. If I could find a way around this without touching the wall or affecting the conservation area in any way, I would do it. As far as the listing is concerned, I would strongly support the fact that the key element of this building is its facade. That's why it was listed. There's no question about that. It's this facade that's distinctive. I've rebuilt the whole house, but it looks the same from Main Street. It was sort of extra cost. I did it to run with the great conservation. I'm strongly in favour of listed buildings and maintaining our heritage. And I've done that for 25 years while I've been building. Some of the aspersions cast up against me earlier, I think, are just fine and malicious. I do hope that they don't even subconsciously come to play in this debate. So again, I would just plead that balance results.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strong. Right, officers, anything about to come back on?
Just a point of clarification on this application, Chair, just to make it clear to members that we are just considering here the impact of demolishing the section of the currently listed wall and the impact that will have on the special character appearance of the listed building and also as part of the conservation area. But nothing to add to what's previously discussed.
Thank you very much, Chris. In which case we'll move into questions. Members? No? No questions? Nobody? In which case I'll move into debate. Mr. Birtle.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'll repeat my previous recommendation or support of the officer's recommendation in refusing this application for similar reasons to which I gave in the first debate in terms of the impact on the conservation area of lowering the height of this section down the historic boundary wall.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and I'll second that, but I have every sympathy with Mr. Streeter's problem with parking in rural villages throughout Derbyshire Dales. That's something that we've all got to look at, I think, both here and out the road.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Bull. In which case, then it's been moved and seconded for refusal as set out in the report. All those in favour, please shout. That is unanimous, so that's been refused. Thank you very much, members. So that we're moving swiftly on now. This is 4.4. This is the one with the 8 representation, so I'll let you have a look at your 8 representation first before we move on. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to read that on the board. Right, members, hopefully you've read the Labour representation before we go to the speaker. I'll just ask you to get any update on this.
No, we'll share what's on the Labour representation.
Thank you very much. So I've got one speaker on this, Mr. James Muir, Little Resident able to speak against the application. 3 minutes, and I will let you know when this is second.
Hello everyone. Following the visit today, I'd like to outline why we wish to object to the proposal extension, and we are appealing to you to understand the impact that this is going to have on our property and how it will affect our living. Our reasons for the objection are as follows. Firstly, loss of light to our kitchen, upstairs bedroom, also the patio seating area and our garden immediately outside. The reasons for having the Velux windows and glazing in our extension was because we needed to increase the light, not limit it. The impact will mean that all the time and investment we have placed in achieving a more spacious light area in our house will now be lost. The 45-degree field of vision from the upstairs window will be narrowed down to just over 20 degrees. This room is used as a home office for 4 days per week by my partner. The extension will create loss of natural light in this room, which results in a feeling of confinement. The recent extension on the north side neighbouring property, Montrose, is 2 driveways away from our property and looks large from this distance. If the proposed extension is to be constructed directly on the boundary, it would appear much larger than the Montrose in length and width, but the sheer height of it, including the gable end, will be intrusive, resulting in our house being boxed in, giving it a feeling again of confinement, as we would have large extensions either side of us. We believe 2 wrongs don't make a right, and other options are available for development, achieving the same area of space for the developer. Further comments in the report state the extension will project to roughly the same as our kitchen extension. This is incorrect, as the extension we have projects 2.4 metres and the proposed is 3. It is due to be built directly on the boundary, which causes us concern, as this will result in the soffit fascia guttering and roof line hanging over our kitchen roof, and therefore building and maintenance of this will mean access to our property. I'm not sure how this is viable when it's our land that will need to be accessed. Supporting comments state that it is in line with other recent developments of neighbouring and nearby properties. This is not correct, as the one built at Montrose is smaller in height and is not constructed on either boundary. There are no other developments on Derby Road that are double-storey to the rear, the same as the proposed, although there are 4 double-storey side extensions, with a 5th yet to be built, the majority of which also have single-storey rear extensions, giving the same downstairs living space as proposed.
30 seconds left.
As previously stated in our original objection letter, we welcome any developments in the area, as we have also spent many years developing our own forever home. At each step of our proposed developments, we consulted with all parties this would have impact on, as the development should be built bearing in mind our neighbours and causing minimal long-term impact as possible. Throughout the whole course of this proposal, at no time has the developer taken any consideration towards us as the direct neighbour or the opposing neighbour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muir. That's your 3 minutes.
Thank you. There is some pictures I've dropped in because the ones aren't very clear.
Thank you very much. I'll pass them on to them.
Thank you very much.
Come back on the
Yes, thank you, Chair. A number of points to come back on there. Members visited the site this afternoon. They will assess for themselves the likely impacts of this particular extension on the adjoining semi. It's worth pointing out that on site this afternoon, in regards to the orientation and position of this particular site and the path of the sun, that appreciate we're in the summer months and the sun's at its highest, but as it travels east to west, there would be, if it sets in the west, the existing property, existing house will cast shadow over the adjoining semi. It's accepted that there will be some additional overshadowing of the gardens of the adjoining property. However, we do not consider that to be so significant magnitude to our refusal of the application. We acknowledge that the extension will sit on the boundary or very close to the boundary, and it will result in some loss of light to the roof lights to the existing lead to outshot to the rear of the adjoining semi, and it will also appear overbearing when appreciated from a habitable bedroom window. that's just a bedroom window, one bedroom window. We don't feel that the impacts are so significant in this case for refusal of the application, except the applicant's point that the extension will sit in a similar position to them as the adjoining pair of semis. However, the impacts on the adjoining semi haven't been reflected on. And if that impact was considered to be acceptable in the case of the Montrose extension, which is very similar in terms of degree of projection from the original rear wall, the position relative to that property is even higher to eaves than the original property, albeit it's lower to ridge. So we consider that the impacts aren't so significant in this case for refusal of the application. Happy to take questions at this stage, although there is one issue I'm not covered, and that's the gutters encroaching over the boundary line. Just make it clear that it's hard to pick out that plan that you can see on the projector. But the party wall, the dividing party wall, we take a centre line. You'll note that the extension is set in from the boundary very marginally, but would enable gutters and fascias to be applied to the extension without encroaching onto neighbouring properties land. However, that's a matter that needs to be discussed with the applicant in the party wall agreements as the development is being constructed. But we're satisfied that the development can be accommodated without encroaching onto third party land. Happy to take questions.
Councillor Mrs. Burford.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask about the planning permission that was given to Montrose in 2017? Can I ask whether that was an on-balance decision or whether it was a straightforward approval? Were there any objections to that one? Because having been on site today and having gone to the rear of Fairview and the house next door, it seems pretty clear to me. It seems pretty clear to me that that extension at Montrose is grossly disproportionate to what you see from the street itself. So from the public view, it looks like an ordinary size semi, but when you go to the back, to me, I know we're not discussing Montrose tonight, but to me that looks totally disproportionate to the size of the house. Does the officer agree with me that that was perhaps not a good decision?
No, I think it's a perfectly reasonable decision. I've looked at the photographs and the plans that were associated with this. Planning officers often have a difficult balancing act to take into account. People want to extend the properties for various reasons, normally because of growing families, and we have to balance that against impacts on the built environment and on neighbours. Generally speaking, extensions to the rear don't have the same adverse impact on the character and appearance of the environment. And typically, in an environment such as this, we get a variety of house extensions that emerge over time. They won't all be the same, they won't all have exactly the same impact. Our job is to balance the issues out.
Councillor Corey.
Yes, I've got two questions. The person who's objecting says that it will break the 45-degree line. Are you of that opinion or not? And the second question is, when we look at it's to do with the material matter, I'm not quite sure. We're looking at light, including light and things like that. But do we take into the fact that people have got to live with what they might see as an overbearing structure impacting on their lives? That's an impact on their lives. Is that a material consideration at all?
Just taking the issue of the 45-degree line, there's nothing in our local plan that applies a 45-degree line. It's a useful rule of thumb sometimes to assess proposals, whereby if they don't break that notional 45-degree line, normally that would be acceptable. But officers have to do assess every application on its individual merits on site, and lots of things can come into that assessment. Orientation is clearly important, and extension that sits to the south of it, the neighbour will have much more impact than an extension that sits to the north, for instance. We also have to have due regard to the nature of the character of the area. So a tight relationship in the centre of Ashbourne, for instance, between two properties might be entirely reasonable and normal in that context, whereas in a different, more spacious environment, we might try and apply a slightly different sense to that type of relationship. So don't get too led down the 45 degree line. It has no substance in terms of plan policy. We have to assess each application on the merits. Sorry, there was another point which I forgot.
Yes, I asked about the material consideration to take into account the overbearing structures that would impact on someone's life, but not particularly on their loss of life or anything like that.
Yeah. They are two separate but linked issues. So you can have something that is physically imposing and actually deprives a neighbouring plot or room of a significant amount of the sunlight that it would enjoy, daylight as well. But you can have something that purely by its scale and height is in itself unneighbourly and adversely impacts community to such an extent that it would be unreasonable. But it's a judgment on each and every case as to where that line should be drawn.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Can I just return to Councillor Sue Guilford's first point, which was the reasons for the acceptance of the approval of the first Montrose planning application, whether there were any concerns that the officers had at that stage.
I'm afraid, Councillor, that property is not up for discussion. We are discussing this application alone.
Okay.
So I'm afraid I'm not going to allow that. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Did the officers receive application for pre-planning advice before the plans came in? Did you have pre-planning advice before that? It was possible to get.
I don't believe so, Councillor, but I'll just check the file, so just hold.
Yeah, would you check that file? Did you have pre-planning advice?
It states on the application form that no application advice was sought prior to the submission of the application.
Okay. Anybody else? Wants to ask any questions? No? In which case then I'll move into debate. So this is entirely up to you. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for record. Councillor Priscilla.
Thank you, and I'll move on to the recommendation for this. I think the officers have about enough time. It's very useful to site visit, but I think they've basically as they do this every day. I think we've got to set their decision, and how well the neighbours spoke.
Thank you very much, Councillor Priscilla. Councillor Donovan.
Happy to second the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with my fellow colleagues here. At the end of the day, I think it would have been a different situation if the neighbours hadn't already got an extension on their own property. The bearing of light coming in is on the skylights of their extension, and they have got windows and patio doors at the bottom. So it's a bedroom that would be facing most of the light depriving. So on that, I'll go with that as a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Mrs. Burth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit disappointed to hear that view. We are here as a planning committee to question the planning officers, and we don't always have to agree with them, and on this occasion I absolutely do not agree with them. I think the fact that I won't mention the other extension extension, but to me that has got a bearing on our decision on this one, because we've seen, well I've seen anyway, the overbearing nature of that other extension. So to me, this will be exactly, oh there's a good picture of it. To me, if we approve this one tonight, it will be exactly the same. It will be overbearing. It will feel as though they are, as the objector said, that they, I like his words, oppressive and intrusive. That is exactly how I see it to be. I realise that obviously everything has to be balanced, the balance of the requirements of the applicant to improve their house, but also I'm making a judgment that that is not outweighed by the harm that will be done to the people living, I can't remember the name of the house, but the adjoining house. There would be other ways of increasing the size of Fairview, but to my mind this is not the way to do it, so I will not be voting for approval.
Right, I've got nobody else down to speak. Councillor Boyd.
Sorry, missed me. Yeah, this is a really difficult one. I feel for the people who are living at Rosedene, because they're going to be really overlooked by two properties on either side of them, and I've given this an awful lot of thought, but I'm not going to support it, I'm afraid. I really do feel that there might be another way that this can be solved, so I'm not going to support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boyd. Councillor Mr. Burford.
Yes, I'm afraid that I do agree with our two colleagues on this side of the council chamber as well. I think this has been an impressive extension. I think, contrary to what the officer has stated, I do think that the other application approved a couple of years ago, whenever it was, did in a way set a precedent for that sort of oppressive extension, which is certainly a high proportion, more than I would probably choose to support on top of the semi. When you've got a pair of semis and one is extended to that extent, the one on the other side is dwarfed in comparison, and I think residents in that particular property are going to feel more hemmed in, if you like, and more oppressed by such a huge extension on one side of them. In fact, in their case, on both sides of them. We've got quite a tasteful extension to the rear of their property, and I think it's far too close to the boundary, and I think it's far too high as well in terms of the roof structure as well, so I won't be supporting it either.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hughes.
I think in terms of material considerations, I think that is reflected by the layout and the density of the buildings, and this creates a very dense area for the neighbours.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I feel both for the applicant and the objector on this issue. I think if the officers, I don't want to criticise the officers, but I think the officers, if they'd intervened here and discussed a better design with the applicant, I think both applicant and objector would be more happy. I think really, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not pleased with what's been achieved here by the officers. I think we could have done a lot better in this. I'm always praising the officers for their very good work, but on this occasion, I think they should intervene and come up with a better design for the officers.
I'll try and come back in a positive way, because members are fully aware that we run a pre-application service. It would have been possible to discuss alternatives had we been approached as part of that process, but when we get to scheme, if we think it's acceptable in any event, then that's when we wouldn't choose to interfere in the design process. On balance, we think this is acceptable, and that's reflected in the recommendation.
Thank you very much, John. So it's been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favour, please show. All those against? So that's been carried for approval. Thank you very much. Moving on now to application 4.5, which is application 19/0082, reserve matters. This is approval of reserve matters for the erection of 10 number dwellings on outline permission reference 50/0043 at land off Main Road, Brailsford. We don't have any speakers on this, so I'll just ask if there's any, please.
Yes, an update on the page of the agenda. The local highway authority since responded, raising no objection to the application. And officer recommendations, suggest conditions.
Right, just have a quick look. There's a late representation, so there's only a couple of lines on, so if I get to move. Obviously, it was something I said numbers. Hopefully you've read it all. So now, open for questions. Members, questions? Councillor Burton, Mr. Burton.
Yes, I wonder what analysis officers go through when they look at proposed housing mix in terms of housing needs in a particular area. Because I'm concerned that in villages like Brailsford, if you constantly have applications for developments like this, modest size developments of up to 10 dwellings, and you see that there are 4 3-bed, 4 4-bed, and 2 5-bed houses, I don't see what that does in terms of the housing mix for future residents, and particularly young families in a village like Brailsford, in terms of supporting primary schools and so on, and keeping young people in the village. That's 7.20, I think, is how that's referred to. I'm also concerned about boundary hedges, and I go along with what the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust said, in fact, in their submission, in terms of reducing the roadside hedge to only a metre wide. I think it's excessive. I think 1.5 metres, as they suggested, would be more reasonable. I'm pleased to see that the hedge is going to be extended around the corner or around the displays into the development. Well, that's one thing. But I wonder how they feel about that boundary hedge, and also the one to the rear of the development, adjacent to the golf course. And I wonder, given that the fact there's going to be a close bordered fence on the inside, on the residence side, I think I'm right in saying, it's not very clear on the drawing probably, but in view of the fact that that is going to be on the inside, who is going to maintain the hedge, and how can it be maintained, given the fact that the golf course is on one side and the close bordered fence is on the residence side? Another concern I have is about this so-called wildflower meadow, the lawns in a wildflower meadow style. I cannot see for the life of me how you can insist on a wildflower meadow lawn being maintained in perpetuity by residents who may not particularly like that. And we're finding Matlock and schemes we've done in the past that people do not like wildflower meadows. I mean, I'm all in favour of them myself, but people like a close mown lawn that's bright green and doesn't have any reason whatsoever. We can have wildflowers as weeds. So, although it's laudable in a way, I don't know how it's going to be enforceable in the future in terms of maintaining that sort of appearance. It seems that all the properties are going to be owner-occupied, they're going to be responsible for their own so-called meadows. On building materials, yet again, I need to raise this red brick issue, and I'd like to know what the residents feel. I mean, we did ask the question, or my colleague asked the question on the site visit about red brick and so on. There are so many varieties of red brick, and in the village nearby, we did see lots of bottled brick, red brick, used in particular developments. Even I think former council houses in the village seem to be that sort of style of brickwork, not one-tone red. So I've asked the officers to consider very carefully what red brick in inverted commas they approve for this particular development when they see samples submitted by the developers. I don't think we want to see some of the red bricks that have been approved elsewhere in the district. Another thing, another question I'd like to ask about is climate change. In a particular clause on climate change, there's all sorts of, I think officers say that the style of roofs are going to be favourable towards the fitting of solar panels in the future by residents if they should so wish. Have they not suggested to the developers that that should basically be provided to start with? terms of maintaining and promoting the council's climate change objectives.
I think we're going to have to share those, Councillor Burfoot. I'll try and do the macro detail and let Andrew come back to you on some of the micro detail. In terms of the housing mix, I think the important thing to note is the time in which we granted outline planning permission for this scheme. Back in 2016, we didn't have a local plan in place, and we didn't have a policy that dictated the housing mix. That puts us in a very weak position when something subsequently puts in the reserve matters to go with that outline approval. You can be sure that as the larger sites that are coming forward now in the district come forward where we don't have a formal grant of planning permission in place, we will be expecting developers to get as close to that mix as is practically possible. And in this instance, we didn't feel that we could push that issue particularly hard. I'll answer the question on brick. Yes, we will look closely at brick. Might not be the same as the Matlock red brick that you're so fond of, but it will certainly fit into the context. The issue of climate change, it's an emerging issue. It's something where I think it's emerged partway or probably 2/3 of the way through the discussions that Andrew's had on this particular development. So I can understand why the issue hasn't been pushed perhaps as hard as we would have liked. You can be certain again, as other schemes come forward, we'll be expecting developers to demonstrate how they have accorded with plan policy. And I think the hope is that somewhere down the line we'll also be able to look at perhaps some further guidance on how we implement that policy to help developers.
Councillor Hobson.
I'm happy to move the recommendation for approval.
Excuse me, Chair, I didn't answer the question about hedges and the wildflower meadows.
In terms of the on-top landscape put forward, I just felt that was appropriate for this scheme. In terms of the future maintenance of it, again, that would be for the owner of the property, future properties to maintain to their best ability. In terms of the boundary treatments on the southern aspect on the golf course, that's being expected to be managed by, I suppose, the owners of the golf course themselves in the current position.
So that was moved by Councillor Hobson, and that was seconded by Councillor Dominic. Do you want to speak to the item, Councillor Noel?
Not necessarily, Chair. I mean, this development has been on for quite a long time now. I think I've travelled through Bradford a lot, and the site is very overgrown, sadly, so I'll be quite happy seeing that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zerber?
No, I just agree with both my colleagues.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sapp?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll support this application, but I do, on the previous site, we decided the opposite, but on this occasion, I will take it on board that this application was part way developed before we got into the climate change issue. So we expect in future that climate change will be a big part in the future, especially these sort of support of our veterans.
Thank you very much for your gracious list. Obviously, councillors. Councillor, Mr. Burfoot.
Just make one further comment to do with the rear boundary to the golf course. I'm not happy with panel timber fencing. As I've said on numerous occasions in the past, we see so many examples in towns, particularly towns in the district, that panel fences have been allowed in development, particularly social housing, I suppose I might say, and then they're not maintained properly by the housing association. In this instance, I don't know who's going to maintain those fences, whether it's individual properties or not, but I thought it would be far better if we had post and wire, or certainly some sort of wire fence that would reinforce the hedge, and then in due course be sort of absorbed by the hedge, and far more better visually and in every other sense in terms of wildlife access as well. So I'm not happy about that particular aspect of the detail of the development. Apart from, I suppose I should say, with my professional background, the landscaping scheme does seem quite admirable, really, I think, generally. I wonder if it's all going to be actually planted and enforced and maintained as such in the future. It's quite unusual in a way, I find, that detailed landscaping is actually provided with internal gardens of private properties. Only that's left to property owners to develop. So hopefully the respective owners will maintain that particular landscaping in the future.
I know we've got a motion on the table, Chair. Take the advice of Andrew. I mean, at the end of the day, that boundary that faces the golf course for the most part isn't enclosing private gardens, is it? It's the other side of a private access road. It would be possible, I think, to look at alternatives to a close border fence if indeed that's what's shown.
As far as I'm aware, there's no close border fence on spot plan. There's existing native hedgerow which will be maintained and supplemented onto the A52 and further used within the courtyard of the site itself. So no close border fence as far as I'm aware.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded for approval. All those in please show. It's unanimous, so that's been approved. So we'll move on to the next bit of work. That's item 5, information on acts and closing enforcement investigations. John, have you got anything to add to that? No, so
can I move it and just ask a question? What's an untidy site in Gardner's Kingdom? So I've got plenty of my wall. I've got an untidy site.
Yeah. We have powers under Section 215 of the Planning Act to deal with what it describes as unsightly sites that are in the public realm. So if we had a particular residential garden with lots of builders' waste, sofas and everything else in there for a period of time, we have powers to require people to tidy that up.
So is this, I'm going to take the drive over there and see what it's like, see how I'm intrigued.
thank you. That's been moved and seconded. Councillor Dunning. Councillor Corby.
I just want to ask a question, a general question, but I will second it. Can you just tell me that, I mean, I'm looking at this as somebody who's come back into planning after a break, on the planning committee after a break, and there just seem to be so many of these enforcements going. What's the average time it takes to get an enforcement done? Is it quite a long time? Because you seem to be absolutely inundated with them here.
Well, I think it's fair comment, and I don't think it's a reflection of the effectiveness of your officers,
No,
but we do have an awful lot of enforcement casework at the moment. I think there are two things driving that. I think firstly, we have a lot of residential development occurring on the ground. Quite a lot of those enforcement cases will be linked to things like operating hours, noise nuisance, dust associated with those new developments. We also introduced, just over a year ago now, the means whereby the public could report enforcement cases through the website to us. So we're doing a much better job than we perhaps used to do of recording all of those concerns that the public have about enforcement cases. But it's something we're monitoring. We realise we're stretched in that particular area, that we are hopefully getting through all the casework.
Councillor Slack.
Enforcement. It's strange you should visit on this, because today a town council that works at first talking to me this morning said an enforcement notice was placed on a property on Crupper Road that works first to put the wall back up. This is about 5 to 6 years ago now, so it's never really happened. The applicants have never taken any notice of the enforcement order. So I can give you the address and everything if you want to pursue it.
Perhaps outside the meeting.
But
Perhaps outside the meeting, Councillor.
I'll take one last question. Mr. Councillor Martin Burfield.
Councillor, last one on the All Saints list, 0091, about Landhall and Jackson Road in Blacklock. Seeing this has been issued, how long ago was that? And has there been any progress or any response from the owner, the site owner about that?
Just to clarify, where you've got notice issued on that report, that could constitute one of a number of notices. In this particular case, it's a planning contravention notice where we've asked a series of structured questions to establish whether the breach of planning control has taken place. The offender, if you like, in this particular case, has complied with the terms of that notice in terms of replying to the questions we've asked them. We have noticed breaches and the press result of those.
Thank you. Right, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? No? Show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. We'll move on to item 6, which is planning appeals.
Can I move the report, please? But can I just make a comment on the Red Lion Hotel, which I see was dismissed? I mean, I remember at that time, I was very keen for the rest of that list of buildings to be used positively. And I'm very sad I'm sorry, I'm not at work, so I remember we saw it on site. I don't know what's happened to the place now, but I know there's speculation in the report of the motives behind it, but I just think once again we'll see another thing that something could have happened, and it hasn't happened, and the appeals have been dismissed. So the officers were correct, brilliant, but the problem remains, which is not brilliant for Derbyshire Jazz. I'll move the report.
Thank you very much, Sir Francis. Councillor Donny, saying, John, is there anything you want to come back on the appeals yourself?
Yeah. Just come back on the Red Lion, because I fully appreciate the fact that officers need to work with site owners to find viable uses of the list of buildings, particularly where they play an important community role. I think the inspector, on looking at that site, was very impressed with the community role it can and will play in the future. It's a unique offer to have both the hotel, a function room, and 2 functioning bars downstairs. If the scheme had gone through and it had been carried out, we'd been left with just the bars downstairs, which in my view would make the premises more vulnerable to future closure. I think whilst maintaining that element of floor space, although it requires creativity on the part of the owner to come up with a viable mix of uses, there are more options on the table that can be pursued. So I think it's something you can view both ways, but we will try and engage with the owner in due course.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So that's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, and thank you very much for taking part in tonight's planning meeting. Sorry, that goes forward.
Yeah. I might.